Paramount has confirmed that it will not complete its proposed $110 billion acquisition of Warner Bros. Before July 22nd, extending the expected closing timeline by at least another week as Oregon authorities continue reviewing the transaction. Critics have argued the deal would harm competition across the entertainment and news industries. We've got managing director for Strat Americas and former Sony Music and Jive Records executive, Breaking Down the Biz podcast host Seth Schachner with us. All right, Seth, but let's break this down, because right now where things stand, it sounds as though Oregon at least is alleging this is the potential for a monopoly. In the bigger media scape, what does this mean?
It probably means, Marina, that there's going to be more delays in getting this thing through. There's a couple of fronts that the Ellison gang is facing, actually, and equally serious is something in the UK where the European regulators and the English are looking at it. But from an American perspective, you had the DOJ clear this thing or indicate that they weren't going to pose any objections to it. And there's been a bunch of states that have sort of piped up and said, hey, not so fast, wait a minute. And they're probably going to bring suit. I mean, there's nothing official that's been released yet, but it looks like that'll be the case. And I think probably, when I look at it, the issue with this is more about what they call the plurality of voices. So, you're talking about reducing the pool of studios and reducing the number of buyers that could, say, pick up a script or hire a director, commit to release a movie. And it's a pretty serious issue, actually. And there's tons of other ramifications throughout, the Hollywood ecosystem for producers and writers. And that's probably what it's going to be about more so than anything. But it probably means there's going to be delays.
All right, so at least delays, given the fact that this is now pretty much hung up in the courts in Oregon. When you think mergers, this is not the first time that we've seen media merge, and sometimes they're big mergers, sometimes not as big. Where does this in that range fit, this Paramount acquisition?
It's one of the very biggest. I mean, $110 billion, and I think the really remarkable thing about this one, and it's hard to pose it positively, is it's going to have this whopping amount of debt. I think it's $79 billion of debt that's going to be put on the combined enterprise. And so, really, to be honest with you, more so than anything, even rising above some of these creative issues that go across a lot of different media verticals, how do you manage that debt? How do you pay it down? And what's the entity going to do that to pay down that debt? And I personally think that's going to be a very kind of restrictive strategy, because it's going to inhibit them from doing a lot, in my view, other than cost cutting, basically. And they've been very clear that the merger is going to be about cost cuts, and there's tons of costs around the merger. There's something called a ticking fee, if you will, if the thing gets hold up that that Paramount has to pay to Warner shareholders too. It's kind of a tough one.
So what I'm hearing is job losses or the potential for them en masse. For the consumer, if this goes through, what does that look like?
Well, so I don't want to say specifically job. There's got to be some type of cost cuts. So yes, probably, there's a Noah's Ark factor, if you will, with kind of two of everything of these studios. So probably some consolidation, yes. And then, you got to look at the number of things that the enterprise finances and releases from a motion picture perspective as well. So I think that's going to be part of it. And then you're not asking directly about this, but the European regulators, the Brits, are extremely tough on this. And I think, Paramount's already indicated it's going to, get out of its interest in a very old distribution thing called UIP that was set up to help our studios internationally release. And there's a lot of concerns around children's content and news, and you may see some divestitures, rippling throughout the ecosystem. So it's a big thing that's getting put together with a lot of debt, and they'll probably have to pair off pieces to get it through, basically.
Interesting. We'll be waiting to see what happens there in Oregon and how this affects that tight deadline here for July 22nd. Seth, always good to talk to you. Thank you.
Good to be here.